The phone was still in my hand when Liam walked in. I must have looked like a ghost standing there in our kitchen, the afternoon sun streaming through the windows, catching the dust particles dancing in the air as my world collapsed around me. "Evelyn? What's wrong?" His voice sounded far away, like he was calling to me from the other end of a long tunnel. I tried to form words, but my mouth had gone dry. "How do you tell your husband of 6 years that your body has betrayed you? That the cells inside your breast have turned against you and are multiplying out of control? I have breast cancer." The words hung in the air between us, heavy and final. I expected him to cross the room, to wrap his arms around me, to tell me we would face this together. That's what husbands do, right? That's what the vows mean, in sickness and in health. Liam didn't move. His face went through a series of micro-expressions so quickly I almost missed them. Shock, fear, disgust, and finally, something that looked disturbingly like calculation. "Are you sure?" he asked, setting his briefcase on the counter and loosening his tie. "The doctor just called with the biopsy results. It's early stage, but yes, it's cancer." He nodded, then walked past me to the refrigerator, taking out a beer and popping the cap. "I need to think," he said, and left me standing alone in the kitchen. I spent that night researching treatment options, survival rates, and what to expect. I reached out to my sister Claire, who lived 3 states away, and my best friend Jenna, who promised to come over the next day. I didn't sleep. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw cancerous cells multiplying inside me, spreading like an unstoppable tide. I expected Liam to join me in bed eventually, but he spent the night in the guest room. When I knocked on the door around 3 a.m., desperate for some comfort, he pretended to be asleep. The next morning, I found him at the dining table with papers spread out in front of him. Not medical research or information on cancer support groups. Legal papers. "What are these?" I asked, though I already knew. "Divorce papers," he replied, not looking up. "I've been thinking about this for a while, and this situation has made things clear for me." "This situation?" I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. "You mean my cancer?" He finally looked at me, his expression disturbingly calm. "It gives me the creeps to deal with someone who is defective," he said, as if commenting on the weather. The words slashed through me like a blade. Defective. Like I was a factory reject, a flawed product to be discarded. "I understand that not everyone knows how to deal with this," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. "But I thought that the love you always said you felt for me would be greater than all of this." He shrugged, pushing the papers toward me. "We'll split everything down the middle. The house, the savings, it's fair." Fair. As if anything about this situation was fair. 2 days after my diagnosis, while I was still trying to schedule appointments with oncologists and surgeons, Liam moved out. A week later, I saw on social media that he was back with Chloe, his college sweetheart. They were at a rooftop bar downtown, her head thrown back in laughter, his arm possessively around her waist. I deleted the app and threw my phone across the room. The day of my first chemotherapy session, I sat alone in the waiting room, watching other patients with their loved ones, spouses holding hands, adult children helping elderly parents fill out forms, friends chatting and distracting each other from the fear. I had told Claire and Jenna not to come. I needed to do this on my own. The treatment was brutal, but I was more brutal. I approached cancer like a military campaign, arming myself with information, following every instruction from my medical team with religious fervor, and pushing through side effects with grim determination. And while my body fought its internal war, the external one with Liam continued. He contested everything in the divorce, claiming that his income was the result of his hard work alone, that the house was more his than mine because he had put down the initial deposit, that the furniture should go to him because most of it had been chosen to his taste. "He's being unusually aggressive," my lawyer Tara said during one of our meetings. "Typically, the spouse who initiates the divorce, especially under these circumstances, tries to be at least somewhat accommodating." "He's punishing me for getting sick," I replied, the truth of it settling in my stomach like a stone. "Then we push back," Tara said, her dark eyes gleaming with determination. "Hard." During the deposition, Liam's lawyer tried to argue that my illness was a financial liability that Liam shouldn't have to bear, especially since we were separating. A prenuptial agreement would have addressed this, the lawyer said smugly. Unfortunately, there isn't one. Tara's response was swift and devastating. Are you arguing that my client's cancer diagnosis is grounds for reducing her entitlement to marital assets? Because I'd love to see how that argument plays to a judge, or to the media. Liam's face paled. In the end, we divided our assets equally, though it took months of fighting. The day the divorce was finalized was the same day my oncologist told me I was responding exceptionally well to treatment. The cancer wasn't spreading, and surgery might not even be necessary if the chemotherapy continued to be effective. You're a fighter, Evelyn, Dr. Lewis said, smiling at the charts in front of her. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. What I was doing was channeling all my rage into survival. Every cell in my body seemed infused with a single purpose: live, despite him. Live, to spite him. I called Claire that night to share the good news about my treatment. I'm so proud of you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I knew you could do this. I'm not done yet, I reminded her. But you will be, she said confidently. And then you're coming to stay with me for a while. No arguments. I laughed, the sound strange to my ears after so many months of grief and anger. No arguments, I agreed. The next day, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. Evelyn, it's Chloe, Liam's girlfriend. We need to talk. It's important. I stared at the message for a long time. Why would Chloe want to talk to me? What could possibly be important enough for her to reach out? My thumb hovered over the delete button, but curiosity won out. I typed back, "What about?" Her response was immediate. Not over text. Can we meet? Against my better judgment, I agreed to coffee the following afternoon. What Chloe told me over bitter espresso and the noise of the cafe around us changed everything. Chloe tucked a strand of auburn hair behind her ear, her nervous energy palpable across the small cafe table. She was prettier than I remembered from college. Her face had matured into something striking, with high cheekbones and intelligent eyes. I wondered if Liam had kept a torch burning for her all these years, even while married to me. I didn't know, she started, her voice barely audible over the hiss of the espresso machine. About your cancer. Not until yesterday. I raised an eyebrow, waiting. I wasn't going to make this easy for her. Liam told me you two had grown apart, that the divorce was mutual. She twisted the silver ring on her middle finger. He said you'd fallen out of love years ago and were just going through the motions. A bitter laugh escaped me before I could stop it. And you believed him? Her eyes met mine, steely with sudden resolve. I did, until I found these. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small stack of papers, sliding them across the table. Medical bills. All in my name. All with dates from the past few months. They were in a folder in his desk drawer. I was looking for a stapler. Her voice had hardened. After I found these, I searched for more information. I found the divorce papers too. Saw the dates. I picked up the bills, my hands trembling slightly. I don't understand. Why would he keep these? For the insurance claims, Chloe replied. He's still listed as your spouse on some of them. I think he's been submitting them for reimbursement from his company's health plan, but not passing that money on to you. The cafe suddenly felt too warm, too crowded. My ex-husband wasn't just a man who had abandoned me at my most vulnerable. He was actively stealing from me. There's more, Chloe continued, pulling out her phone and showing me a photo of a text exchange. He's been talking to someone called Vince about making sure she doesn't get anything else. I think he's planning to contest more of your settlement. I stared at her, trying to make sense of this sudden alliance. Why are you showing me this? Why betray him? She put her phone away, her movements deliberate. Because I realized I don't know who he is anymore. Or maybe I never did. The Liam I loved in college was kind, compassionate. She looked down at her coffee. Last night he made a joke about how at least I wasn't broken merchandise. The words hit me like a physical blow, echoing his defective comment. I saw tears well in Chloe's eyes. I'm so sorry, Evelyn, for all of this. She stood up, gathering her things. Do what you need to with that information. I need to figure out what I'm going to do next. As she walked away, I called after her. Chloe. She turned back. Thank you, I said, meaning it. She nodded once, then disappeared into the bustling crowd outside. That evening, I forwarded everything to Tara, who responded almost immediately. This changes things. Insurance fraud is criminal. Let me make some calls. 3 days later, I was back in Dr. Lewis's office for my regular checkup. The news was better than I could have hoped for. The tumor has shrunk considerably, she said, showing me the latest scans. I've rarely seen such a dramatic response to treatment. At this rate, we might be able to avoid surgery altogether. I should have felt elated, but my mind was elsewhere, still processing Chloe's revelations and waiting for Tara's next steps. Dr. Lewis must have noticed my distraction. Evelyn, she said gently, this is good news. The best news. You should celebrate. I nodded, trying to focus. You're right. I'm sorry. It's just been complicated outside of treatment. Dr. Lewis leaned back in her chair, studying me. Cancer is never just a physical battle, and going through it without support makes it doubly difficult. She hesitated, then added, Have you considered joining one of our support groups? Sometimes talking to others who understand can help. I had resisted the idea before, determined to handle everything on my own. But I was tired of being alone with my thoughts, of carrying the weight of both cancer and betrayal by myself. Maybe I will, I said. When's the next meeting? Dr. Lewis smiled. Tonight, actually. 7 o'clock in the community room downstairs. That evening, I found myself in a circle of chairs with 8 other women of varying ages. Some were clearly in the midst of aggressive treatment, wearing headscarves to cover hair loss. Others looked outwardly healthy, but carried the same haunted look I sometimes caught in my own reflection, the look of someone who had been forced to confront their mortality too soon. The group facilitator, a breast cancer survivor herself, started by asking everyone to share where they were in their journey. When my turn came, I surprised myself by telling them not just about my treatment progress, but about Liam's abandonment too. He called me defective, I said, the words still sharp on my tongue. Like I was a broken appliance he could return. Murmurs of outrage rose from the circle. A woman in her 60s with a pixie cut and fierce eyes reached over to squeeze my hand. My husband of 30 years did the same, she said. Left me 6 weeks after my mastectomy. Said he didn't sign up for this. Another woman nodded. My boyfriend ghosted me. Just stopped returning my calls after I told him about my diagnosis. One by one, they shared similar stories of partners who had fled rather than stand by them through illness. But they also shared stories of rebuilding, new relationships, renewed focus on themselves, unexpected joys discovered in the aftermath of both cancer and heartbreak. Cancer strips away the non-essential, said Maria, a woman about my age who had completed treatment the previous year, including people who were never really there for you to begin with. For the first time since my diagnosis, I felt something loosen in my chest. These women understood in a way no one else could. They had walked through fire and emerged, not unscathed, but alive, transformed. I joined them for coffee afterward, exchanging numbers and accepting an invitation to Maria's book club. As I drove home, I realized I was smiling, actually smiling, for the first time in months. The next morning, Tara called. Your ex-husband's in serious trouble, she said without preamble. What he did isn't just unethical, it's illegal. Insurance fraud carries heavy penalties. My contact at the insurance company is preparing to launch a full investigation. I sat on the edge of my bed, processing this. What does that mean for me? It means leverage, Tara replied, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. I've drafted a settlement amendment that addresses the undervaluation of assets in your original agreement. If he signs it, we might be willing to cooperate with him on the insurance matter. If not, he could face criminal charges, I finished. Exactly. Part of me wanted to see him punished, to watch him face consequences for his actions. But another part was simply tired of the fight, of keeping anger burning when I needed all my energy for healing. Send me the amendment, I said finally. Let's see what he does. 2 weeks passed with no response from Liam. I continued my treatments, attended another support group meeting, and even joined Maria and the other women for a fundraising walk. My hair had started to thin from the chemotherapy, so Maria and I went wig shopping together, making an adventure out of it rather than a tragedy. Then, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Liam standing there, soaked to the skin and looking like he hadn't slept in days. "I need to talk to you," he said, his voice hoarse. "It's important." I should have slammed the door in his face. Instead, I found myself stepping aside to let him in, curious about what could possibly have brought him back to my doorstep. What he told me in the next 10 minutes left me stunned, caught between vindication and a strange, unexpected sympathy I never thought I'd feel for him again. Liam stood in my living room, water dripping from his coat onto the hardwood floor I'd once polished every Sunday while he read the paper. He seemed smaller somehow, diminished, his usual confident posture replaced by something almost hesitant. "You're sick," I said. Not a question, but an observation. Even through my lingering anger, I could see it clearly. The yellowish tint to his skin, the weight loss, the dark circles under his eyes. He nodded, not meeting my gaze. "Pancreatic cancer. Stage 3. The words hung in the air between us. I should have felt something. Vindication, perhaps. Or that bitter satisfaction people call karma. Instead, I felt a strange hollowness, like someone had scooped out my insides and left nothing but echoes. "How long have you known?" I asked. 3 weeks. He ran a hand through his damp hair. "The symptoms started a few months ago, but I ignored them. Thought it was just stress." I gestured for him to sit, more out of ingrained politeness than genuine concern. "Does Chloe know?" His laugh was harsh, brittle. "Chloe left me. Said she didn't sign up for this." The irony wasn't lost on either of us. "She's been gone a week. So you came here." I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. "What do you want, Liam? Sympathy? Forgiveness?" He looked up then, his eyes red-rimmed. "I don't deserve either. I know that." "Then why are you here?" He pulled a folded document from his jacket pocket, Tara's settlement amendment. I signed it. "Everything we own together is rightfully half yours. I've also arranged for all the insurance reimbursements to be sent directly to you from now on." I took the paper, scanning his signature at the bottom. "You could still face charges." "I know." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I'm not asking you to protect me from the consequences of what I did. I needed to tell you in person that I'm sorry. Not just for the money. For everything." Part of me wanted to throw his apology back in his face, to remind him of the defective comment, of how he'd abandoned me when I needed him most. But looking at him now, sick, alone, frightened, I recognized something I'd seen in myself months ago, in the mirror after my diagnosis. "What's your treatment plan?" I asked, surprising myself with the question. "Surgery next week, then chemo and radiation. Dr. Wells at Memorial." I nodded. "Wells is good. One of the best." An awkward silence stretched between us, filled with the ghost of our former life together. Sunday brunches, vacations in Maine, dinner parties with friends who had carefully divided themselves between us after the divorce. "I should go," he said finally, standing with visible effort. "Thank you for listening." As he moved toward the door, a wave of something like pity washed over me. Not forgiveness, I wasn't ready for that, but perhaps understanding. "Liam," I called after him. He turned, his face a question. "Do you have someone going with you? To your appointments?" He shook his head slowly. "My sister offered, but she's in Seattle with the kids. It's fine. I can manage." The words I spoke next surprised us both. "I'll go with you, to the first one at least." "Why would you do that?" His voice cracked slightly. "Because no one should face this alone," I replied simply. "Even you." After he left, I called Claire, needing my sister's steady voice to make sense of what I'd just offered. "You're a better person than I am," she said after I explained. I'd have told him to go to hell. Maybe I should have. I curled up on my couch, watching raindrops race down the window. But then, I'd be no better than him, would I? "You'd be justified," Claire pointed out. "Maybe." I sighed. "But I don't want to be the person who walks away from someone who's suffering, even if that's exactly what he did to me." "Just be careful," my sister warned. Don't let him take advantage of your kindness. You're still healing too. The day of Liam's surgery, I arrived at the hospital 30 minutes early, armed with a book and the hard-won knowledge of what to expect. His sister Jane had flown in from Seattle after all, and regarded me with obvious confusion when I appeared in the waiting room. "Evelyn? What are you doing here?" I explained my agreement with Liam, watching surprise and then grudging respect cross her features. "After what he did to you," she shook her head, "I wouldn't have blamed you for leaving him to rot." "That's not who I am," I said, the words feeling like a discovery rather than a statement. The surgery lasted 7 hours. Jane and I took turns getting coffee and updating Liam's elderly parents by phone. By the time the surgeon appeared, we had reached a cautious truce, bonded by shared anxiety. We were able to remove most of the tumor, Dr. Wells told us. But there was more involvement with surrounding tissues than we hoped. He'll need aggressive follow-up treatment. Jane began to cry silently. I reached over and squeezed her hand. "When can we see him?" I asked. "He's in recovery now. Family can visit in about an hour, one at a time." Jane looked at me. "You should go first. You were there for him today when you had every reason not to be." I shook my head. "You're his sister. You go." Waiting alone while Jane visited Liam, I checked my phone to find a message from Maria from the support group. "Just checking on you. We missed you at the meeting last night." I typed back quickly, "At the hospital. Ex-husband having cancer surgery." Her response was immediate. "Long story," I replied. "Tell you later." When I finally saw Liam, pale against the white hospital sheets with tubes and monitors surrounding him, he looked vulnerable in a way that made my heart ache despite everything. His eyes fluttered open as I approached. "You came," he whispered, his voice rough. I said I would. I sat in the chair beside his bed. The surgery went as well as could be expected. Dr. Wells removed most of the tumor. He nodded slightly, wincing. "What happens now?" "Now you focus on healing," I said. "One day at a time." Over the next few weeks, I found myself in an odd routine. My own treatment in the mornings, then helping Liam navigate his in the afternoons. We weren't reconciling. The damage was too deep for that. But we were finding a new way to exist in each other's lives, connected by the shared experience of illness, if nothing else. Jane returned to her family in Seattle after 2 weeks, but not before taking me aside. "Thank you," she said earnestly, "for being the bigger person." I shrugged, uncomfortable with her gratitude. "I'm just doing what I'd hope someone would do for me." "Still, after how he treated you," she shook her head. "It means something, Evelyn." One evening in late October, I arrived at Liam's apartment to find him sitting on his balcony despite the chill, wrapped in a blanket and staring out at the city lights. His chemotherapy had started the week before, and he looked even more gaunt than usual. "You should be inside," I chided gently, setting down the groceries I'd brought. "You'll catch cold." "Just needed some air." He turned to look at me, his expression strangely intense. "Evelyn, we need to talk." Something in his tone made me pause. "What is it?" "I can't let you keep doing this," he said, "taking care of me. It's not right." I leaned against the balcony railing. "I'm not doing anything I don't want to do." "That's just it." His voice strengthened. "You shouldn't want to help me. After what I did, the way I left you when you needed me most." He looked away, his profile sharp against the darkening sky. "I've been thinking about it constantly. Why did I do that? What kind of person abandons their wife when she gets sick?" I had wondered the same thing countless times over the past months. "Fear," I suggested quietly. "You were afraid. That's no excuse." "No," I agreed. "It's not." We were silent for a moment, the city humming below us. "I've made arrangements," he said finally. "My parents are moving into town temporarily to help, and I've hired a home health aide for the days they can't be here." But I processed this information slowly. "You're firing me?" A ghost of his old smile flickered across his face. "I'm setting you free, Evelyn. You've done more than enough, more than I deserved. But your life doesn't need to revolve around mine anymore." I felt an unexpected pang of something like loss. Caring for Liam had given me purpose during the final stages of my own recovery, a way to reclaim some control in a life that had spiraled so dramatically out of my hands. "What will you do?" he asked, studying my expression. When you're not playing nurse to your ex-husband? The question caught me off guard. What would I do? My treatments were nearly complete, my prognosis excellent. The divorce was finalized, the financial matters settled. For the first time in over a year, my future was a blank canvas. I don't know, I admitted. I haven't thought that far ahead. You should, he said simply. You have a whole life waiting for you. Don't waste any more of it on me. As I drove home that night, his words echoed in my head. A whole life waiting. But what kind of life? Who was I now? After cancer and betrayal had reshaped me so completely. The answer came the next morning, in the form of an unexpected visitor at my door, who would change the course of my recovery and my heart, in ways I never could have anticipated. When I opened my front door the next morning, I almost didn't recognize him. Dr. Michael Chen had been my radiation oncologist during treatment, a serious, focused man who rarely smiled and spoke in precise clinical terms. The person on my doorstep wore jeans and a faded Radiohead t-shirt, his usually slicked-back hair falling casually across his forehead. Dr. Chen? I blinked in surprise. Is something wrong? My results? Your results are perfect, he interrupted, raising a hand. May I come in? This isn't a professional visit. Confused, I stepped aside to let him enter. In the 6 months he'd treated me, we'd never had a conversation that wasn't about cancer. I heard you completed your final treatment yesterday, he said, standing awkwardly in my living room. Congratulations. Thank you. I gestured toward the kitchen. Would you like some coffee? He nodded, following me. Evelyn, I know this is unorthodox, but I wanted to talk to you, not as your doctor. Something about the intensity in his dark eyes made my heart rate pick up. I don't understand. I'm not your physician anymore, he said, accepting the mug I handed him. Your case has been transferred to Dr. Lewis for follow-up care. Because my treatment is complete. Yes. He took a sip of coffee, seeming to gather his thoughts. And because I requested it. You did? Why? He set down his mug. Because I couldn't stop thinking about you. Not as a patient. As a person. He looked uncomfortable but determined. I've seen hundreds of patients face cancer, but I've never seen anyone handle it with the grace and strength you showed, especially given your circumstances. I felt heat rise to my cheeks, unsure how to respond. I know about your ex-husband, he continued, how he left when you were diagnosed, the nurses' talk. He gave a rueful smile. And I know you've been helping him through his own illness, which is, he shook his head, extraordinary. It's not extraordinary, I said quietly. It's just basic humanity. That's exactly what I mean. He leaned forward slightly. Evelyn, I'd like to get to know you. The real you, not the patient in my office, if you're open to that. I studied him, seeing him properly for the first time. The intelligence in his eyes, the slight crease between his brows, the careful way he held himself, as if afraid of taking up too much space. Like a date? I asked finally. He smiled then, transforming his serious face. Exactly like a date. My first instinct was to refuse. I wasn't ready. My body was still recovering, my heart still bruised from Liam's betrayal. But something made me pause. Maybe it was the genuine admiration in Michael's eyes, or maybe it was simply time to take a step forward into whatever came next. Okay, I heard myself say, but there's something you should know. What's that? I gestured to my body. I'm still healing, inside and out. I'm not sure I'm ready for dinner, he interrupted gently. I'm asking you to dinner, Evelyn. Nothing more. At whatever pace feels right for you. Relief and something like anticipation flooded through me. Then yes, I smiled. Dinner would be nice. We set a date for the following weekend, and after he left, I called Claire. My oncologist just asked me out, I blurted when she answered. Your doctor? Claire sounded alarmed. Isn't that unethical? Ex-doctor, I clarified. He transferred my case specifically so he could ask me out. Well, that's... She paused. Actually kind of romantic, in a medical drama sort of way. Are you going to go? I said yes. I paced my living room, suddenly anxious. Is that crazy? After everything with Liam, am I setting myself up for more heartbreak? Evelyn. My sister's voice softened. You've spent the last year fighting for your life and then helping the man who abandoned you. Maybe it's time you did something just because it might make you happy. Happiness. The concept felt foreign, almost forgotten. Was I even capable of it anymore? The days before my date with Michael passed in a blur of nervous energy. I cleaned my house from top to bottom, caught up on paperwork, and even called Liam to check on him. His parents answered, saying he was resting after his latest chemo session. He's a fighter, his mother said, her voice warm with gratitude. Like you, Evelyn. Thank you for showing him how it's done. The night of my date, I stood before my mirror, barely recognizing myself. My hair had grown back in wisps, darker and curlier than before. I'd lost weight during treatment, my cheekbones more prominent, my eyes somehow larger in my face. I wore a simple blue dress that hung slightly loose on my new frame and a scarf draped artfully around my neck. Different, but not defective. Changed, but whole. Michael took me to a small Italian restaurant tucked away on a side street. The hostess greeted him by name, leading us to a corner table lit by candles. I come here to think sometimes, he admitted as we settled in. The owner doesn't mind if I take up a table for hours just drinking espresso and reading journals. You read medical journals for fun? I teased. Not always. He smiled. Sometimes I read mystery novels. I like figuring things out. Throughout dinner, I kept waiting for the conversation to turn awkward, or for Michael to ask uncomfortable questions about my illness or divorce. But he spoke instead about growing up in California as the son of Taiwanese immigrants, about his passion for mountain biking, about a recent trip to Japan. He asked about my work in graphic design, my relationship with Claire, my love of photography, all things that had nothing to do with cancer. For the first time in over a year, I felt like a person, not a patient or a victim. Why oncology? I asked as we shared tiramisu. It must be difficult, seeing people at their most vulnerable. He considered the question seriously. My mother had breast cancer when I was 12. Her doctor treated her like a collection of symptoms, not a person. I promised myself I'd do better. His eyes met mine. Sometimes I succeed. Sometimes I fail. You didn't fail with me, I said softly. His smile was gentle. I'm glad. After dinner, he walked me to my car. The night air was cool, stars visible despite the city lights. I'd like to see you again, he said. If you want that too. I nodded, suddenly shy. I'd like that. He leaned in slowly, giving me plenty of time to pull away, and kissed my cheek. The gentle pressure of his lips against my skin sent a shiver through me. Not of passion exactly, but of possibility. Over the next few weeks, Michael and I fell into a comfortable rhythm. Dinners twice a week, occasional weekend hikes, a trip to an art exhibition I'd been wanting to see. He never pushed, never rushed, content to let me set the pace of our growing relationship. On our 5th date, I invited him into my home for the first time. We cooked dinner together, laughing as we bumped into each other in my small kitchen. Later, sitting on my couch with glasses of wine, I found myself telling him things I'd never spoken aloud. About the darkness I'd felt when Liam left. About the moments during treatment when I wasn't sure I wanted to keep fighting. About the strange sense of purpose I'd found in helping my ex-husband through his own illness. You're extraordinary, Michael said when I finished, his eyes serious. Not because you survived cancer, though that's incredible, but because of who you chose to be through it all. I shook my head. I'm just me. That's exactly what I mean. He set down his wine glass and turned to face me fully. Evelyn, I think I'm falling in love with you. The words hung between us, both terrifying and exhilarating. Part of me wanted to run, to protect myself from the possibility of another heartbreak. But a stronger part recognized something in Michael I'd never had with Liam. A partnership based on mutual respect and admiration, not convenience or societal expectations. I'm scared, I admitted. The last time I loved someone, he called me defective and walked away. Michael's expression hardened momentarily at the reminder of what Liam had done. Then he reached out, taking my hand in his. I can't promise we'll never face challenges, he said, but I can promise I won't walk away from them. Or from you. I believed him. But there was one more barrier between us. One final vulnerability I hadn't shared. There's something else. I said, my voice barely above a whisper. My body, after treatment, there are scars. Understanding dawned in his eyes. Evelyn, he said gently, I've seen the human body in every state imaginable. Scars don't scare me. It's not about fear, I tried to explain. It's about desirability, about feeling whole. He nodded slowly. I understand. And whenever, if ever, you're ready to share that part of yourself with me, I'll consider it an honor. He squeezed my hand. But know this, nothing about you could ever be defective in my eyes. As he pulled me into an embrace, I felt something crack open inside me, a wall I'd built to protect myself, crumbling under the weight of his quiet acceptance. I wasn't ready to surrender completely to this new love, this new life. But for the first time, I could envision it clearly. A future beyond survival, beyond healing. A future with joy. What I didn't know then was that my journey would come full circle in ways I never expected, and that I would soon face a decision that would test not just my capacity for love, but for forgiveness. The call came 6 months into my relationship with Michael. Jane's voice was strained, distant. Liam's taken a turn for the worse, she said without preamble. The cancer's spread to his liver. The doctors are saying weeks, maybe a month. I gripped the phone tighter, staring out my kitchen window at the spring flowers blooming in my small garden. I'm so sorry, Jane. He's asking for you, she continued. You don't have to come. After everything, no one would blame you if you didn't. But I promised I'd call. After we hung up, I sat motionless at my kitchen table. Michael would be arriving soon for our weekend together, a camping trip we'd been planning for weeks. I didn't know what to tell him, or what I wanted to do myself. When he arrived, one look at my face told him something was wrong. Evelyn? He set down his bag, coming to kneel beside my chair. What happened? I explained Jane's call, watching his expression carefully. I don't know what to do, I finished. Michael was quiet for a moment, considering. What does your heart tell you? That's the problem, I said. Part of me wants to go, to offer whatever comfort I can. Another part thinks I don't owe him anything, that seeing him now would just reopen wounds that have finally started to heal. You don't owe him anything, Michael agreed. But I think you owe yourself closure. His words struck me with their simple truth. This wasn't about Liam's needs, or even my obligation to him. It was about finding peace with my own past. Will you come with me? I asked quietly. Michael's smile was gentle. Of course. Whatever you need. The hospital room was eerily familiar. The same antiseptic smell, the same muted beeping of monitors. But the man in the bed was barely recognizable as the Liam I had known. His once athletic frame had wasted away, his skin stretched thin over prominent bones, his eyes sunken and yellowed. Evelyn, he whispered when he saw me, his voice a dry rasp. You came. I came, I echoed, taking the chair beside his bed. Michael squeezed my shoulder once, then stepped outside to give us privacy. Liam's eyes followed him. Your new doctor boyfriend? Yes. He nodded slightly. He looks like a good man. He is. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our shared history between us. I don't deserve your forgiveness, Liam said finally, but I need you to know how sorry I am. Not just for leaving when you were sick, but for making you feel... He struggled for breath. For calling you defective. You were never defective. I was. I took his hand, so thin now, the bones prominent under papery skin. We were both just human, Liam. Flawed, scared, doing our best with what we had. Your best was better than mine. His smile was a ghost of its former self. I was a coward. Yes, I agreed, not unkindly. You were. He laughed, the sound turning into a cough. When he recovered, his eyes were serious. How did you do it? How did you find the strength to help me after what I did to you? I considered the question carefully. I didn't want to be defined by what happened to me, either the cancer or your leaving. I wanted to be defined by how I responded to it. Liam's eyes filled with tears. I've been thinking a lot about who I was, who I wanted to be, the kind of mark I'm leaving. He gestured weakly to his failing body. Not much time to change it now. It's never too late to choose kindness, I said softly, even if only in your heart. We talked for nearly an hour, about our marriage, about the good times before cancer changed everything, about the paths our lives had taken. There was no dramatic reconciliation, no tearful declarations of forgiveness, just two people who had once loved each other, finding a quiet peace with the past. When Liam's energy began to fade, I stood to leave. I should let you rest. He caught my hand weakly. Evelyn, thank you for coming, for showing me what courage really looks like. I leaned down and kissed his forehead gently. Goodbye, Liam. Michael was waiting in the hallway, his face concerned. Are you okay? I nodded, surprising myself with how true it was. I am. Jane approached as we were leaving, her eyes red from crying. Thank you for coming, she said, embracing me. Let me know if you need anything, I replied. And Jane, when the time comes, I'd like to attend the service. She nodded, tears spilling over. He'd want that. Liam died 3 weeks later, on a clear spring morning. The funeral was small. Family, a few colleagues, some friends who had maintained contact after our divorce. I sat with Michael in the back row, his hand steady in mine. The minister spoke of life's journeys, of human frailty, of redemption. I found myself reflecting on my own journey, how the worst moments of my life had somehow led me to greater strength, deeper compassion, and ultimately, to Michael. After the service, Liam's mother approached me, pressing something into my hand. He wanted you to have this, she said, her eyes kind despite her grief. It was a letter, sealed in an envelope with my name written in Liam's once confident, now shaky handwriting. I tucked it into my purse, not ready to read it yet. That night, sitting on my porch swing with Michael's arm around me, I finally opened the envelope. Evelyn, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. There's a certain clarity that comes with knowing your days are numbered. I see now what I couldn't see before. That true strength isn't about running from pain but facing it head on, as you did. When I called you defective, it was my own fear speaking. I couldn't face the possibility of losing you, so I chose to leave first. It was the coward's way out, and I've had plenty of time to regret it. The day he found out I had breast cancer, my husband of 6 years filed for divorce. But when I found out he was sick and alone, I showed him what it means to be truly human. That's not your exact words, but it's how I'll remember our story. You were never defective, Evelyn. You were extraordinary. And in the end, you taught me how to face my death with the same courage you faced your life. I hope you find all the happiness you deserve with your doctor. He seems to recognize what I was too blind to see, that scars are just proof we've lived and survived. With gratitude and regret, Liam. I folded the letter carefully, tears streaming down my face. Not tears of grief or anger, but of release, as if the final weight I'd been carrying had lifted. Are you okay? Michael asked, his voice gentle in the gathering darkness. I turned to him, seeing the future reflected in his eyes. Yes, I said, and meant it. I'm whole. 1 year later, I stood before a room full of women at the Cancer Support Center, sharing my story. Not just the medical journey of diagnosis and treatment, but the emotional one, of betrayal and healing, of finding strength I never knew I had. Cancer changed me, I told them. So did my divorce. But I'm not defined by what broke me. I'm defined by how I put myself back together. As I spoke, I caught Michael's eye in the back of the room, his smile encouraging. We had married in a small ceremony 3 months earlier, surrounded by friends who had stood by me through everything. Claire, Maria, and the other women from my support group. Even Jane had come, bringing warmth and closure. The word defective once cut me to my core, I continued. It made me feel less than, broken beyond repair. But now I know better. I looked around at the faces watching me, some newly diagnosed, others veterans of the battle, all seeking connection and hope. We are not defective, I said firmly. We are resilient, transformed, and in that transformation, we become not less, but more than we ever thought possible. As applause filled the room, I felt the final piece of my heart slot into place. Not healed in the sense of being exactly as it was before, the scars would always remain, but whole in a new way. Stronger at the broken places, ready for whatever came next.